Hi there, how was your day? So the internet's been imploding over Pokemon Scarlet and Violet these past few weeks, like, really imploding. People have been praising it for its innovation and others have been dunking on it for its slurry of bugs, glitches and everything in between. And while yes, its overall presentation is laughable and one could even argue a rip-off of $60, but I think if you look a little deeper, you might just find something great. So today we aim to answer the questions on everyone's mind. Is this game an undercooked buggy mess that needed more time in the oven? Or is it the very best, like no Pokemon game ever was? Pokemon games have always been a complete gamble when it comes to story. Either you'll have a clash of titans in the middle of the ocean, or you'll do nothing but battle gym after gym after gym. And in recent years this gamble has felt thoroughly rigged, with games like Let's Go and Sword and Shield giving us peak mediocrity when it comes to story. But Scarlet and Violet have completely changed that, giving us not one but 3 good stories. These 3 stories are presented to us in 3 different paths: Victory Road, Path of Legends, and Starfall Street. In Victory Road you'll be going through the typical Pokemon shtick: fight 8 gyms, form a budding rivalry with your childhood neighbour, fight the Elite Four and become the champion. Normally about now I'd be complaining about this 20-year-old storyline being reused yet again, but there are some actually decent changes here made to keep the storyline interesting. First of all, the gym trainers have actual personality now. Gym leaders have always felt kind of one-note and two-dimensional to me. You'll have the hothead or the elegant one or the really passionate one, but not here. Instead we have some new genuinely interesting characters like Arno, a VTuber who is obsessed with people subscribing. And Larry, who is literally just some guy. No joke, his whole gimmick is that because he's the normal type gym leader, he's just some guy. I love him. On top of this, we also have a decent rival for once. With Hot, the whole friendly rival thing felt forced thanks to lazy writing and story beats that made you constantly want to smack him over the head with a brick. But here in Scarlet and Violet, we have Nemona, who is a genuinely enjoyable character. She's no masterclass in writing or anything, but the way that she's written to be a fun, happy-go-lucky kind of girl instead of an egotistical butt-wipe really makes all the difference. And what also helps is in this game, if she annoys you, you can actually just tell her to go screw off. I'm Nemona! Normally I live in the school dorms, but home is here. What do you say, new neighbour? Wanna be friends? Then we have Starfall Street. In this path you'll work with a mysterious voice over the phone and this dude named Clive, who is totally 100% not just your teacher dressing up as a little boy. You know, that really sounded okay in my head, but now that I'm reading it out loud for the first time. Working together with these 2 characters, you'll go to 5 different bases, each containing 1 member of Team Star who you have to take down. At the end, it's revealed that the big boss of Team Star is actually the person you've been working with on the phone, who really just wanted her friends to be safe and out of trouble all along.
May I have that?
Overall, this story is fine, but probably my least favourite of the 3. It's definitely the cheesiest and not always in the best of ways, but hey, at least we got to meet Penny, the big boss, who is actually just a big softie. She's also Galarian, so you know what that means. The English will never back down! Bless the King's plentiful lands! Oi! 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 And finally, we have the Path of Legends. In this path, you'll follow Arven, this weird cook fella, and the new legendary Pokemon, Koraidon or Miraidon, respectively. I chose Scarlet, so I'll just be saying Koraidon. You'll follow along these 2 while you search for Herba Mystica, this weird plant crap, and take down big old Titan Pokemon. However, as you progress throughout this path, you learn more about Arven and his motives. He reveals that the real reason he's after the Herba Mystica is because he needs its healing properties to heal up his sick Pokemon Mabostiff. And this was unexpected, to say the least. Not gonna lie, going into this I wasn't expecting to come out teary-eyed, but damn Game Freak. It's genuinely so sweet to see Mabostiff slowly get better and Arven come out of his shell. Especially as he reveals that his parent, the great professor of this game, who yet again I will be calling Sada because I got Scarlet, abandoned him in his youth. And that note kind of brings me to the secret 4th path, the way home. The way home is a path you unlock after completing all 3 paths, and as such is a culmination of all 3. You'll see all the main characters of the previous paths come together to venture down into the mysterious crater of Paldea, otherwise known as Area 0. Down here, you'll work together with a professor who's been down here since Arven's childhood because she was actually working on a time machine. This time machine was successful in extracting Pokemon from a different time, including Koraidon. However, it's revealed that in a fight between our Koraidon and another Koraidon, the professor was killed, leaving behind an AI version of herself and leaving our Koraidon defeated and never able to battle again. After working together to reach this AI professor, she tells us that if we don't shut down the time machine, the entirety of Paldea will run rampant with Pokemon from prehistoric times. Which is kind of inconvenient because if we actually try shutting down the time machine, she will be forced into battling us because of her code or something. Ready for anything, we shut it down anyway and prepared to fight her and her ancient Pokemon. And we did. All is well. Except it isn't. Not just yet, because one final safety protocol activates, sending the AI Professor into a frenzy in which he sends out the other Koraidon that beat our Koraidon so long ago, leaving it up to our Koraidon to finally fight again, saving the day. However, for the time machine to truly be shut down, the AI Professor cannot stay, and wanting an adventure of her own, she sends herself back to the past, shutting down the machine and trapping herself in Dino times forever. Wow, that was a lot. Overall, I really like the story of this game. The way that it's all tied together in the end, the grandiose nature of it all, and the way that it changes so much of the Pokemon formula and still sticks the landing is all amazing to play through. Unlike Sword and Shield, I never felt bored, even during the segments I felt could have been better. This feels like the story you'd find in a home console Pokemon game, and while it's 1 or 2 games too late, I'm glad it's finally here. 9 out of 10. The world of Pokemon has been a topic of debate for a while now. There are people who like the traditional linear games, people who prefer the more open games, and people who can never make up their minds. Personally, I've always preferred the more Legend-style gameplay, with it being set in an open world, although the restrictions of Legends made the world feel a little more restricted than open. But here, the world is the best it's ever been by a long shot. I mean, look at this map! Loading screens are a rarity, it's not all split up, you don't have your handheld constantly. This is a truly open world Pokemon game, and I cannot express how cool that is to me. I grew up with Pokemon. I grew up with the games, the anime, the trading cards, and I always wondered what Pokemon would be like if it were an open game. A game where it truly feels like an adventure and not a shopping list, and this is that game. And given the way Game Freak has been over the years when it comes to change, I well and truly never thought we'd get to see such a title. Childhood dreams aside, however, this isn't perfect, mainly thanks to how empty this world feels. You can look out in front of you and not see any Pokemon, any trainers, structures, collectibles, anything. In fact, most of this map is empty space. And of course, we have to talk about what I've been trying to avoid this whole time. The way it performs. Or rather, how it completely refuses to perform, because holy crap is this game ever slow. It astonishes me that a game costing $60 was allowed to release like this. There are times when something wouldn't load in unless I was literally right there, times my game would play in slow motion, times mountains would warp around, mountains that are literally 1 polygon. Normally graphics aren't my forte, but come on! I am honestly hoping that there are updates put out to address these issues, but as of right now, this genuinely amazing world is so hard to experience. 8 out of 10. Leading up to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, I was cautiously optimistic for the core gameplay at hand. For the most part, it looked amazing, but I couldn't help but worry that Game Freak would install their signature stink onto it somehow. And upon playing it on release, I was amazed by how resoundingly, phenomenally, perfectly good it was. Yeah. This is good. First of all, I love the different paths here. The way that you're able to jump between the different paths is so fluent and adds a nice bit of variety to the gameplay. It means that if I get tired of doing gyms, I don't have to. I can always just do something else, which as far as Pokemon is concerned is revolutionary. But what do the paths actually look like in action? Well, let's start off with the obvious. Victory Road is just the typical shtick. As mentioned earlier, going through Victory Road means you'll go through the 8 gyms as normal. Only now, there is the neat introduction of getting to do the gyms in whatever order you choose, meaning that if you really wanted to, you could take on the hardest gym first. And I cannot stress how big of a change up this was to the gameplay. There was 1 or 2 times that I went to a gym I was severely underleveled for and lost. But after going out in the wild for a bit and coming back, I ended up winning, making the whole thing feel that much more rewarding and making me feel like I went on a journey. Overall, this path is good. I don't know how to use one of these, but I'd put it here if I did. Next up is Starfall Street. Like I said earlier, in this path you'll have to take down 5 Team Star bases. The way you actually take down said bases is kinda neat. You have to use the new automatic battling feature to make your Pokemon fight 30 enemy mons within 10 minutes, and overall I like this. It can be a bit clunky, but nothing too over the top. Although if I were to make one criticism, it is that this did get repetitive as the game went on. After doing this 5 times with no alteration to keep things fresh, it definitely got stale. Something I'd suggest is add more Pokemon to take down and make the limit stricter each time, just to make things feel that much more engaging. Also maybe add a few more differences when it comes to the environment, because 4 out of 5 of these all took place on a flat piece of land with only one of them being any different and by extension, interesting. A decent idea that could have been refined. And after you've defeated a set amount of Pokemon, you take down the boss, and I love these guys to bits. They all have so much personality, and not just their dialogue, but their designs and movement. I mean seriously, after Sword and Shield, I didn't think I'd get to compliment the animation of a Pokemon game, but look at this. Also, their car is a Pokemon. That's it. That's the sentence. This one can go here, cause it's kinda mid. Path of Legends! This is probably my favourite path, by the way, because I really like the story, but I'm not biased, I promise. In this path, you'll follow Arven as you take on 5 Titan Pokemon. Titan Pokemon are kinda just bigger than average and extra strong. Think Dynamaxing, but with less girth, because size doesn't matter. Why did I put that in the script? And however much I like the spectacle of the Titan Pokemon, they kinda just hang around. I mean, it's cool that they're on the map and all, but there really isn't any build up to fighting them, and most of the time when you get to them, they're just kinda there. You walk into them, a fight starts, and that's pretty much it. You beat them, Arven shows up, and you do it again, only now it's stronger. But you don't really get to notice it because you have Arven's help this time, so like what's even the point of making it stronger then? For each Titan you beat, Koraidon gains a new ability like flying or climbing, which is a cool incentive, but like, that's kind of it. There really isn't much to talk about when it comes to the gameplay with this one, and it probably could have been developed more, but hey, the story's cool, so I'm putting this in S for Splendid. And finally we have The Way Home, which is mostly just story. I mean, I guess we get to unlock Area 0, where we can find all sorts of funky Pokemon from different time periods, but like, that's it. Mid. Outside of the path, however, is where this gets interesting, because have I mentioned that this is an open world Pokemon game? Because it is, and it is, and it is. Like I said before, this world is definitely flawed, but come on, it's an open world Pokemon for Christ's sake, how am I not supposed to fall in love with this? The amount of times I got lost doing something else that has nothing to do with the story is wild, and the game makes it so easy by dotting stuff everywhere. Items, towers, metal as hell Pokemon, swords for some reason. Seriously, what are these sword things? This all makes exploration feel great. I always found myself just wanting to look around and see what Pokemon I could find, or what new city I would stumble onto, or even just a new area to explore. Like this bamboo forest or autumny area that makes the landscape feel that much more diverse. And while we're on the topic of stuff you can find, let's talk about these things. These little crystal dollops are actually Terrawades, like Maxwades in Sword and Shield. You use these to fight an uber strong Pokemon with a bunch of people utilizing the game's new mechanics for Restalizing, which we will talk about in just a sec. The general raid format has absolutely been improved upon since Sword and Shield, as in Sword and Shield, once everybody had selected a move, you had to painstakingly watch all the moves play out individually, including any stat changes that may have occurred. This resulted in battles taking up to 10 minutes and my Switch being chucked in the bin, whereas in Scarlet and Violet, once everyone's picked their move, they all go off at once, saving so much time and making this feel a lot more like a battle than a line at a deli. On top of this, there is now a genuine incentive to doing some of these battles, as this is, by my knowledge, the only way to get a Pokemon which has a Terra typing different to its normal typing. Again, we'll talk about that whole shebang more later. Unlike in Sword and Shield, where you'd kinda just get a box standard Pokemon. But what is Terastallizing, I hope you asked? Essentially, it's this game's version of Mega Evolution. Z moves. Dynamaxing. Boiling down completely to your Pokemon being stronger and sparklier.
This is Editor Robbie here, here to say that it also changes the type of your Pokemon, but I didn't remember it. It's not a very memorable thing, because, you know, I did 3 separate versions of this script and I forgot to mention that in all 3, which is also just kind of my bad. Sorry about that, I'm very sick, I'm in bed, yeah, okay, enjoy the video.
If I'm being honest, this feels completely unnecessary. In the past, these new battle mechanics such as Mega Evolution and Dynamaxing were used to keep the gameplay interesting, but I mean the whole open world gameplay thing kind of felt like a big enough change for this to be unneeded. Not to mention the fact that all Pokemon just get a copy and pasted hat thing put on them that looks completely ridiculous. And then we have the traversal of this game, which is a big old mixed bag. Obviously you can move around as your trainer, only it is worth mentioning that any changes made in Arceus like the dodge roll or the manually aimed Pokeballs have been completely gotten rid of. But outside of this, we now get to ride on the back of a new legendaries, giving us the ability to jump and run and climb and stuff. This all sounds like stuff you could do as a regular person. You can also glide! Holy sh! Riding the legendaries is decently fun. The dashing and the gliding all feels decent enough, although I'd be lying if I didn't bring up how clunky this can be. The jumping physics are all out of whack, resulting in me just falling in the void multiple times. Going too fast results in some major pop-in issues, and sweet mother of Arceus is the climbing ever worth. The game likes to chuck a bunch of curved edges and slopes onto the cliffs, which really gets in the way because if you're ever climbing and you encounter one of these curves, you'll just start sliding. You can't jump out of a slide, you can't move out of a slidey area, you just slide. And if you were planning on making it impossible to climb up the slightest slope, maybe don't add slopes to the areas we're supposed to climb. It is worth talking about battling here, because like many things in this game, regular old battling has received quite the update. Just like in Arceus, battles are much faster now, and they almost all take place in the overworld, which probably should have been a thing a while ago, but hey, at least it's here now, I guess. On top of this, trainer battles are now optional, which like, thank God. I don't know if I could have lasted another game's worth of randos forcing me to fight their animals. And now the moment you've all been waiting for. Again, let's complain about the game's performance. I talked about it a little earlier, but it's absolutely necessary to bring it up again because not only does it affect the world, it also affects the gameplay massively. Let's start off with the issues with popping because wow did this annoy me. You could not count the amount of times I've been forced into a wild battle because a Pokemon didn't load in until I was already on it. There were so many times I came close to just putting the game down for a good 20 minutes because of how consistently annoying this was. And the frame rate of this game is positively abysmal. Either the game will just freeze once every 3 seconds if there's more than one thing on the screen, or the game will, and I cannot stress this enough, play in slow motion. This is without exaggeration, it will just play straight up in slow motion. And this is just the graphical performance, we've not even spoken about the bugs and glitches. Glitches that make your trainer look like this, your Pokemon look like this, and your nightmares look like this. The fact that this is all in an official, full-priced, AAA release kinda just feels gross to me. Like, why should I pay 50 quid or $60 for a game that refuses to work? I'm gonna have to go for another 8 out of 10. This score could easily go up to a 9 or even a 10 if the onslaught of bugs and glitches are sorted out, because as it is for now, some people, who paid full price mind you, are having difficulty even playing the game. Okay, let's start out with the positives. As far as positives go, I like the design of everything here. The new Pokemon look great and are some of the best Pokemon we've had in a while, alongside the human characters sporting vastly better designs than what we've seen in recent memory. And of course we have the new towns, which for once in a Pokemon game really feel alive, filled with people and personality. All of these towns feel different, like for example Cascarapa being the literal oasis in the middle of a desert built around multiple waterfalls and housing the water gym. And then you have Levincia, a techno city decorated with Iono stands and big electrical billboards. No two places in this game are quite the same from a design point of view, and it makes every new place you stumble upon really feel new. I also do quite like the new art style of the game. The way the game fuses the classic Pokemon art style along a more realistic take works weirdly well, even if it can look messy at times. Just for little things like all the Pokemon's updated texturing and the new detailing in people's outfits really makes the world feel more real, while also not making the game feel like a 2012 gritty reboot of the series. I also really enjoy the cutscenes this time around. I don't know if it captures the movement through rotoscoping or motion capture or whatever, but it looks really clean and really brings the characters to life. It also allows for scenes that are supposed to feel big and important do so without being cast with Sword and Shield stiffness. And that's about it for the positives. Now onto the negatives. This game looks about as appealing as cat food left out on a sunny day. I mean, look at this! Anything even slightly in the distance crumbles into Play-Doh. You can count the polygons making up the environment on your hand, and the game drops frame rates more often than even Sword and Shield. Even when you look past the technical performance of this game, the graphics are unappealing. The best they ever are is actively bearable. And when you do look at the technical performance, this game fails to run well, sometimes even failing to run. There have been multiple times when my game has frozen on a loading screen or just gotten stuck in general. This is made so much worse when there are even just 5 Pokemon on the screen at once, or you're in a particularly big environment, so instead of just opting for a lower resolution or something, the game instead just plays in slow motion. This isn't a joke or embellishment, and I know I've already brought it up multiple times, but I cannot stress to you enough, my game would just flat out play in slow motion. I mean seriously, that is so many levels above embarrassing, it's laughable. The fact that this game that had hundreds of people working on it opts to play in slow motion when it gets too intense is absolutely insane. It is also packed with glitches. Here's a fun fact, if you connect 2 controllers and move forward with both of them, your character will move at twice their normal speed. And that's on the low end of bugs. There are many more where your Pokemon either don't load in or load in as some Lovecraftian being. Visual bugs like this one I got where my Pokemon just slid out of battle, and as mentioned, bugs that stop you from playing at all, like multiple minute-long loading screens, or the world just refusing to load. And for those of you who will argue that the Switch's hardware is the issue and not Game Freak, allow to me to pull out my handy-dandy list of games on the Switch that prove you wrong. Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, Splatoon 2 and 3, Xenoblade 2 and 3, The Witcher. Do I need to keep going? The hardware is not the issue, the game is. I understand wanting to defend a game you like, but you have to admit when it has its flaws. A game being flawed doesn't mean you have to enjoy it any less. The bottom line is, this game should not have released when it did, simple as that. I get that Pokemon has their 3-year schedule for new regions and all that, but this game and all of its play-doughy goodness should have been the exception. Especially in a year already so packed with Pokemon. This is a game that really would have benefited from even just 6 months more in development. But hey, I guess where there's money to be made, you can't wait 6 months. 4 out of 10. Here's a bit of Robbie with an IE trivia for you. This game compelled me to change this category from the music to the audio. To be honest, it's a mix of me wanting to do this for a while now and me wanting to complain about voice acting. Just let you know that this will be a permanent change to make reviews better and more in depth. Cool? Cool. With that established, let's kick this off by talking about the music in this game, because I do quite like it. Overall, the music's pretty good. It's even dynamic this time around. Whoa! Basically, all that means is that if you're out in the wild and you start a battle, you won't get the usual Instead, the music will intensify, speeding up, adding new instruments, etc. This is a nice little touch. It really goes hand in hand with battles being in the overworld when it comes to making the battles feel more natural. Alongside this, we also have a generally solid soundtrack mixed in. Nothing phenomenal, it all does the job, but I will say I really like the gym music in this game. Like, really like the gym music. It starts off strong with a jazzy opening leading straight into the rest of the song. And from there stays pretty consistently upbeat. But during the last leg of a battle when the leader is down to their last Pokemon, the music suddenly kicks up, the crowd starts chanting along, and the leader terrestrializes their Pokemon. All of this working together to sell the epic feel of the battle. But it's not all sunshine and Pokemon battles, as I, as always, have some complaining to do. Something that I think is missing from a lot of modern day Nintendo games, Mario, Splatoon, Pokemon, is voice acting, and this game especially really would have benefited from having it. You can make arguments for the other games, but every reason I've seen put out there for this game and the series as a whole has fallen short. Pokemon games don't have voice acting for tradition. Pokemon games also didn't used to be open world, but you seem to have embraced that change. It would be too expensive. This game sold 10 million copies in 3 days. I'm gonna guess it may be just fine. Not to mention the elephant in the room that Pokemon is the highest grossing media franchise of all time. Oh! Other than that, yeah, it's a Pokemon game. Only sound effects are pretty much the same you heard decades ago, but hey, if it ain't broke, I guess. 8 out of 10. Overall, the audio of this game is decent, but come on with the voice acting already, Game Freak. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are by far my favourite games in this series. After a few of the recent blunders, I started questioning whether or not I even enjoy these games anymore, but this game really saved my fandom of a franchise. The open world experience alone is enough to make this game the very best of the series to me, and when you couple it with more in-depth gameplay, story and world, you have yourself a Pokemon game that is by all means the very best, like no previous entries ever were. Is it perfect? No. Its lousy graphics and performance can be a huge letdown at times, and if you avoid the game because of that, then you're more than justified. But for me, personally, I love this game to bits. It's the game I've dreamt of since I was like 8, and it's finally real. Without further ado, let's find out the final score. 7.4 out of 10. Trust me, I did the maths. If you enjoyed the video you saw today, please be sure to like, comment and subscribe. I've been Robbie with an IE, you've been amazing, have a lovely day. But the game ends with an Ed Sheeran song, so 0 out of 10.